Welcome, everybody, to our latest Kadima Masterclass. Happy Wednesday to everybody, unless you're joining in Singapore, perhaps, where it's already Thursday, your time. Happy Hump Day. As folks are jumping in, a couple of just housekeeping things. One, if you're not connected to me on LinkedIn, I'd love to connect with you. Scan the QR code here. Follow me. Shoot me a note. Love to hear a little bit about you. So that being said, let's get this party started. Today for the masterclass agenda, we're going to talk about the 5 strategies that are proven to help accelerate your career, help you get a great job quickly, confidently, and with lots more money. We're going to talk about goal setting, the importance of that. We're going to talk about why it is important to play to your strengths and lean into those strengths. We're going to be talking about building relationships. That is probably the most important aspect of any successful job search. We're going to talk about how to get more interviews. We're going to talk about how to get more offers. And the coolest thing, for the first time ever, we are giving away free digital courses, free solutions for 3 lucky winners. So if you stick around near the end, Natalie's going to select 3 winners, and we're going to give over $1,000 worth of courses out to you for joining today. So stick around for that. First off, let's get into some of the meat of why you're here. Strategy number 1, and this is perhaps I'm going to say all these are most important. They're all important. I don't want to, it's like I have 3 kids. I don't say which one I love the most, although sometimes I tell them that, but I tell them all that I love them the most. But goal setting is so critical. Before you start on any job search, and I don't even love the term job search, I like to call it job acquisition, because you as an individual are trying to acquire a job. But in order for you to acquire that job, you need to hone down your search, and you need to effectively identify goals that are important for you and define those. And there's 2 good quotes on here, one from Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And I know the job search can be daunting, can be inefficient, can be frustrating at times. If you know where you want to go, that will improve the situation a lot. And then there's an awesome quote from Stephen Covey, who writes a book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And people that are effective are people that clearly identify goals and set those goals clearly. So I can't tell you what your goal should be. Some people want to work for big tech. Some people want to work for banking. Some people want to work for themselves. Some people want to work for small companies, large companies. That is really a personal thing that you need to decide upon. And the way that you can get to that point is to think about what is important for you for your next job. What do you personally care about as an individual? Do you care about work that you enjoy? Right now, with a lot of layoffs, do you care about having a stable job working for a company that is financially viable? Do you care about having a good manager? Do you care about the location, the compensation? And I'm curious to hear, I'm not going to be expounding on that now, but my team will. I'm curious, outside of these items that you see on this slide, what else is important for you as an individual as you're thinking about where you want to go next in your career? What values are important to you as you are identifying where you want to establish goals? Once you think about that, once you identify those values, it is important to then put clarity and specificity into where you want to go. And you can't just say that I want a good manager, or you can't just say I want good pay, because there's so many different companies out there that have managers, have good pay, have values that you care about. You need to start specifying which of those organizations, which of those companies can help get you there. And a good way to do that is to look at some great lists of of companies that pay well, treat people well, have good diversity records, whatever is important for you. Look at those. And if you're, there's 4 good lists on this page here where you can start to think about which companies, which organization do you personally want to target. And we've also given you a cheat sheet of 100 companies that are proven to accelerate your career. So if you're having trouble picking a list, and I generally tell people to pick a list of 40 target companies at a minimum, You can download our top 100 list here to start there. Just go through the list and start identifying companies that would potentially appeal to you personally. So you start there. And it's important to build a big list, not put all your eggs in a single basket. As you think about those companies, a lot of people want to earn money. A lot of people want companies to pay them well. A lot of people want to get paid what they're worth. Well, if you do want to get paid what you're worth, there are some organizations, there are some companies that pay well. Here is a list of some companies that pay particularly well. And even though Meta just announced that they're laying off 10,000 people on top of the 13,000 people that they laid off previously, and despite the fact that Google is laying off 12,000 people and Salesforce is laying off people, these companies are still hiring and these companies still pay darn well. So as you think about the companies that you want to work for, think about companies that are going to pay you well, because you can be a customer success representative at United Health Group, or you could be a customer success representative at ServiceNow, and your compensation is going to be very different based on the profitability and the pay compensation philosophy at those companies. What I advise people, and I did not come up with this phrase, Norman Vincent Peale did, shoot for the moon. Do not opt yourself out. Do not take yourself out of the running for things because you don't think that you can get hired by Netflix, or you don't think you can get hired by McKinsey, or you don't think you can get hired by Goldman Sachs. Set your sights high on the companies where you want to work for. Shoot for the moon. And by doing that, whether you land on the moon or not, you will land amongst the stars. And if you don't land at the moon right away, you will get closer to that moon, closer to that goal. And I've seen this happen a number of times where people take stepping stone roles on their path to achieving the type of roles and land at the type of organizations that they're seeking. So do not cut your knees out from under you. Do not underlevel yourself. Because like I personally have been able to achieve these goals, not right away, but through hard work, diligence, and perseverance. So aim high. A lot of people are attracted to startups. And startups are great. There's lots of benefits of startups. You can make a bigger impact in a smaller organization. You might be working on some cool, neat stuff, but I want to relate a story to folks just to get an understanding. Between when I worked on Wall Street and before I went back to business school, I worked in venture capital. And venture capitalists, what they do is they look at a bunch of deals and they decide, am I going to fund this deal, invest in this deal, or pass on this deal? When I worked in venture capital, we reviewed about 4,000 deals per year, and we would invest in about 4 to 12 per year out of those. And we knew that a lot of those startups that we invested in as venture capitalists would fail. And there's an adage in the venture capital space, the rule of a third. A third of startups will be huge successes, will carry the returns of the fund, will be an overwhelming success. A third of the roles, a third of the companies that the venture capitalists, the venture capital firms invest in will go belly up, bankrupt, total disaster, and they will just have to write that deal off. And then there's another third of investments of startup companies that will do okay, that will get returns on the money for the venture capitalists, for the owners of the company. But if you are an employee at one of those companies in that third that just returns money to the venture capitalists and to the startup founders, you are never going to realize the value of that equity, those options, all that sexy upside of, oh, you're going to get lots of options in this company, of maybe you'll get lots of options in WeWork. And then you saw what happened with WeWork as that imploded. So Adam Neumann, who started WeWork, did quite well for himself, but the employees at WeWork got hosed. So be wary as you look at startups that there is a 2/3 likelihood that upside will never come. I'm not saying not to look at startups, but just go in there with a good perspective that it's risky endeavor. And that's why I generally advise people to look for more stable organizations. So now we're up to strategy 2. Realistically leveraging your strengths. So you have your company set, you have your target set. Now you need to play to your strengths. Not sure if there's any Seinfeld fans out there. I'm a huge Seinfeld fan. This is a image of George Costanza, and when we send this out, you can check out the video. This was a scene when George Costanza, a character on Seinfeld, it was a few minutes or a day or two after he quit his job in real estate, and he was talking to his friend Jerry, saying, "Hey Jerry, I'm trying to figure out what job I should go into." And he told Jerry, he's like, "Hey, I like baseball. I make all those witty comments when we're watching baseball games. Maybe I can be a sports announcer." And Jerry replied to him, "You know, George, you kind of needed to be a player or a broadcaster to do that," neither of which George was able to do. And George is like, "Well, I know a lot about baseball. I can be a general manager." And again, Jerry replied that, you know, those roles usually go to ex-players or people that have been in the game for a while. So no one's going to hire you for what you want to do. People are going to hire you for what you're good at. What eventually happened with George, he crawled back and went back to the real estate company that he quit. Never wound up working in, well, actually he did wind up working in baseball, but several seasons later. But you got to put yourself in the mind of the hiring manager. I've been a hiring manager for about 2 decades. And when I hire people, I don't give a crap what people want to do. I care about what they've done in the past and what skills they have and how I can see them fitting into the role. So think about what you're good at. If you're good at sales, don't try to pivot into product management right away. Get into the company in sales. Then once you're in the company, then you can move around. But play to your strengths. Play the cards that you're dealt. As you're thinking about some of those strengths, not only is it functional strength that you've done, so maybe you've done customer success before, but there are other cards that you have to play, other assets that you have at your disposal that are immensely valuable. So if you've gone to good schools, you have good school brands on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile, use those, use Alumni Network. If you've worked for good companies, that is frankly how most roles are hired. So if you're trying to hire someone from Johnson & Johnson, they're going to look probably for people that worked at Merck before, or Pfizer, or maybe GlaxoSmithKline, companies like that have done similar sort of things. So play to the strengths of the companies on your resume. Think about partners you've worked with. Think about the cross-functional teams that you've worked with. So if you are in product development, but you've worked with the engineering team, you can potentially pivot to engineering if you have a lot of sense about a lot of insight about the engineering team, as long as you also have those abilities to code and so forth. So think about those cross-functional teams that you have tangential knowledge about and insight about. Think about the seniority of individuals that you're talking to and influencing. Have you spoken to VPs? Have you spoken to directors, either internal in the company you're working at, or trying to influence external stakeholders, external partners? Sectors that you worked in before. If you have worked in healthcare, like maybe you've worked at Salesforce and you worked in the healthcare sector, you could all of a sudden either continue to work in a software product like Salesforce, or you can work in a healthcare, health tech type industry. So think about those different sectors that you've been exposed to throughout your career, and those are good levers that you have. Think about the functions that you performed, and think about high profile projects that you've worked on. And there's a few examples here. I had a client once who she was working for, I think it was called the United Jewish Appeal. It was a nonprofit organization, but one thing that she did there, which was phenomenal, is she was single-handedly responsible for Facebook changing their policies on Holocaust denial on the platform. So because of the work that she did, Facebook all of a sudden decided that we are no longer going to discuss Holocaust denial on our platform. And it was specifically due to the woman that this woman, Ifat, did to create the policy, to convince Facebook to do that. And that shows impressive results and also is a huge asset in her favor that shows that she has ability to influence people, work with senior leaders, and make real impact. Strategy number 3, building relationships. And this is not just about increasing the number of connections you have, although it's partially due to that, but it's really about building intentional, authentic, and mutually beneficial relationships. So let me tell you one story here. I'm a big fan of Adam Grant. As he says in his profile here, he's an organizational psychologist at Wharton. He's a #1 New York Times bestseller author. He wrote the book Think Again. He wrote the book Plan B. He wrote the book Lean In with Sheryl Sandberg. I think he wrote that with her. No, he might not have written that. I think he wrote Plan B with Sheryl Sandberg, but he's a famous author. He's a thought leader in organizational psychology. He's someone that I admire. I wanted to reach out to him when I was starting Kadima. And actually, I reached out to him before starting Kadima, but I wanted to reach out to him for a project that I was thinking about during my time at Facebook. I reached out to him in November of 2018, as you can see there, and he responded 4 hours later, replying to my note, and we continued to have a conversation. So he actually answered a couple of questions for me over direct message on LinkedIn, and then he actually wound up asking me for a favor. He asked me to speak to one of his friends. I hosted one of his friends up at Facebook while I was there, and we have a little bit of a relationship here. I don't know if he really knows who I am, but fast forward 2 years later, when I was starting Kadima, I reached out to Adam again and said, hey, I have this great idea for how to disrupt recruiting, how to empower people to control their career. Would you mind taking a look at my business plan? And he replied, and I actually have his comments in a Google Doc where he was nice enough to give me some feedback on the business plan as I was developing it for Kadima. So don't underestimate the ability to reach out to people. If you reach out in an authentic and effective and mutually beneficial way, you will be surprised on how possible it is to build these relationships. So let's take it down from the 50,000-foot view to something more actionable. Say that you are someone that went to a small university, like I did, Binghamton University. I don't know if anyone's from Binghamton here. It's a small state school, upstate New York. Say I was at Binghamton, or say I went to Binghamton, but I was trying to connect with somebody at Apple. So there are ways on LinkedIn, and you can go to my network and you can search for the individuals like I did here. What I did is I looked for people that went to Binghamton University and now work at Apple. And what that yielded was a list of 94 results of people that went to Binghamton, now at Apple. So I see that list of people. What I did next was I shot a note to one of them. I just chose this one randomly just to, as an exercise. And I reached out to this guy, Chintan, and you can see the message that I used here. And I highlight a few things here of specific relevance. One, use a person's name. If you have not read Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, read that book. It's a damn good book. But one of the things he says is there is nothing sweeter to somebody's ears than their own name. So use people's name. They will be more responsive. Make sure you don't spell their name wrong either. I talked about the common bond that we had with Binghamton. And then I ended it with something whimsical, like Go Bearcats. That's our team mascot or our team name. We're a really crappy sports team, but that's our team name. So I wrote that to him. And the beauty of when you reach out to individuals on LinkedIn, if you're not connected to them, LinkedIn limits your word count or your character count to 300. So it forces you to be concise. And you can send this sort of message to all 94 of those people if you want. Just change their name from Chintan to Zachary to Jonathan to Paul. And by sending those out, you will be surprised at how many people accept your connection. And then once they accept your connection, then you can build relationships. You can have a conversation with them. And once you have a conversation, the goal is to have what is commonly termed an informational interview. If you have not heard that term before, it's a very common terminology. I learned that term first when I went to business school, when I spent a lot of money to get my MBA. The goal of an informational interview is not to get the job. It's not to get a referral. The goal is to seek advice, learn about the company, learn about the industry, build more relationships. Do not ask for a referral. And the reason why I say that is if you ask someone specifically for a referral, 95% of people will say yes to your face, that sure, I'll refer you, but only 25 to 50% of people will actually follow up on that. So you want to build a relationship, you want to build an authentic conversation and conversation so that they will say at the end of that, hey, Kelly, seems like you have a great background. If there's something I can do, if I can ever refer you to a role here at McKinsey, please let me know. So have those conversations, take it offline from LinkedIn, or sorry, take it online from LinkedIn to offline to video-based conversation, in person, phone call, but build those relationships. Strategy number 4, work the system. And this part people get wrong all the time because they don't understand how this system works. Thousands of people, like the hundreds of people that are on this call now, want a better job. Dozens of people are aiming just to actually get an interview to speak to a human being. And at the end of the day, generally only one person out of those thousands of initial candidates are getting the job. So you need to really understand how this game is played so that you can optimize the game. There are 3 primary paths, points of entry into consideration for a job, into what I call the job acquisition funnel. 1, you can apply coldly. You can apply on LinkedIn, you can apply on Indeed, you can apply on Glassdoor, you can apply on Monster, or you can apply at the first party job site. So you could apply at cvshealth.com/jobs or google.com/careers. So if you apply at the right place, and I mean by the first party job sites, at the right time when these roles are fresh, because there's going to be lots of competition and you want to get in there early, and for the right roles. So roles that reflect your strengths and your capabilities. You will increase the likelihood of getting selected through cold application, but you are fighting with lots of volume and it's a low odds game, but you can get interviews that way. The second way to come into the job acquisition process, into interviews, is to be recruited. So if you have good logos on your LinkedIn, if you have good titles, if you've worked at good companies, it's likely that people will reach out to you on LinkedIn, say, hey, I see that you have this great experience at Bank of America, and we're looking to hire someone here at Chase. We'd love to talk to you. So you might be recruited. There are some things you can do there by making sure that all your information is clear and up to date on LinkedIn, but there's very little you can do there because it's more of a reactive process of people coming to you. The third point of entry is the referral channel. And if you think about how you've gotten jobs, I don't know about you, but 24 out of my 29 jobs I've had in my career have originated because someone said, hey, you should speak to this guy, Alan. He's a decent guy. He's at least worth talking to. And that got my foot in the door. So think about how you build those referrals. You can do it through weak ties. You can do it through new ties. You can do it through those informational interviews. But only 7% of people are actually applying through the referral channel. But 40% of applicants are hired through referrals. So there is there is lots of opportunity for you to exploit that low competitive space. Then if you get past one of these 3 points of entry, you get into what I call the job acquisition funnel. You get past in the yellow bar here, you're just submitting resumes, you're competing with hundreds, if not thousands of people. If you are fortunate to get to a human, then you're in the mix of 20 people when you start to talk to the recruiter. When you talk to the hiring manager, you may be further weaned down into about 5 or 10 people. Then you might get invited for on-site interviews or loops or panel interviews. You're competing with 3 to 5 people there. And then if you're fortunate enough, you wind up coming home with that offer. So if this is how the game is played, there are ways to optimize every aspect of this funnel. The 5th strategy is to train and build tenacity for interviews, because I'm telling you, you will get rejected a hell of a lot more than you will get offers. Because if you look at the numbers that you're competing with, it's just the law of the numbers. It's how it works. So you need that tenacity. So no one's that excited about interviews, maybe except for me. I take interviews for fun. I'm kind of weird, but most people hate interviews. There are 2 sides of the interviews. There's 2 phases of interviews. So interviews are unfair. They are inefficient. It's a very slow process in most cases. And often they are poorly conducted. Outside of a few companies that do it really well, most companies interview quite poorly. Whether I don't know if that surprises you or not, but it's just a fact. After interviewing for 1,000 companies myself, I can tell you factually that most companies do it poorly. You will get ghosted. You will get rejected for jobs that you are perfectly qualified for. But on the positive side, interviews are darn consistent. And because of that, you can backwards engineer and improve your likelihood of getting offers. This is how interviews work. And I can tell you this because I've interviewed about 2,000 people when I worked at Google and Facebook and Salesforce and American Express and UBS and a lot of other companies. And I've also interviewed at a lot of companies myself. And about 90 to 95% of interviews go like this. The first stage, recruiter screen. The recruiter is looking for two different types of things. Are you qualified for the job description? And are there any knockout factors in terms of compensation, location, things of that nature? If you get past the recruiter, you get to the hiring manager. The hiring manager is also assessing about two things specifically. One, can you do the job because I have a hole to fill on this team? So can you convince me that you can do this job? And secondly, can I manage you? Because this person is going to be your boss. Third stage are the loops. So that is usually a series of 4 to 5 interviews of 45 minutes in length, which are which they use a very standardized process, often called behavioral-based interviewing. So they will ask questions like, tell me about a time you had to deliver exceptional sales results with minimal resources. And there's a specific way to respond to this called the STAR method, where you say, here is the situation. Here is the task. This is the action that I took, and here are the results. It spells STAR. So that is how you answer these interviews, and that's how you get from phase 1 to phase 2, or sorry, stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3. Then within each of those stages, there are 4 phases of the interview. Phase 1 is rapport building. Every interview starts with small talk, and it's important because of psychology and because interviewing is so imperfect. You want to build rapport. You want someone to like you. If they like you, they're going to be more positively inclined towards voting yes for you. The second phase of almost every interview is TMAY, tell me about yourself. You need to have that nailed down, 3 to 5 minutes max of who you are, what you've done, why you're interested in this company, and why specifically are you a great fit for this role and why you are going to add value to this role. 3, questions that they have for you. This is the meat of the interview. It usually is about 30 to 45 minutes out of the interview. And then finally, questions from you. And I'm telling you, you better have at least 3 questions prepared for every round of interview so that when they say to you, Tamika, do you have any questions for me? You don't want to say, no, I don't have any. You answered everything. You want to come with some questions that are well thought out. It doesn't mean you need to stick with those 3 prepared questions, but have those at your ready so that you're not fumbling around when it's your opportunity to ask them questions. So after you do that, you will go through this job funnel. And if you are fortunate enough, you will be the last one voted, the last one who is not voted off the island, and you will get an offer. So that's how interviewing works. That's how you optimize your chance of getting an offer. So I told you there were 5 strategies, but I'm throwing in a 6th strategy totally free here. Once you get that offer, that is when you talk money. Do not talk money before. When you talk money before, you are doing yourself a disservice in 95 out of 100 times. The reason why you're doing a disservice is compensation is confusing. You do not know what your net worth is. What I have on this slide are all the different components of what can contribute to your paycheck, what can contribute to your W-2, what can contribute to the money that is going to pay your bills, your rent, your mortgage, your kids' education, whatever. This stuff is very confusing, and you likely will not understand how the company operates, how the company compensates. And if you say something, you are likely going to shoot your knees out from under you, and you're going to undersell yourself. So because of that, avoid talking about comp, except in very rare instances. And the way that you deflect the conversation about comp, I posted about this on LinkedIn, but I'll share it here as well. If they ask you about comp early on, you just respond, I'd like to get paid in line with the scope and impact of the role. If they pressure you again, which they likely will not, just say, hey, I'm really excited to be working for the opportunity to work here at SAP. I don't think money is going to get in the way of an opportunity. If they push harder, you just say, hey, I'm not familiar with how Bank of America compensates people. Can you share a little bit about the compensation philosophy? And they will tell you, and then you can say, okay, well, that's a little bit different than I'm used to. Can I get back to you? And you'll never need to get back to them. Trust me, that works. There are some exceptions to the rule when you should talk comp, very rare. One, if you're confident that you're paid well, and you're only going to leave if you get paid more than what you're getting paid well. But I'm telling you, most people are not paid well. Secondly, if you're inundated with interviews, so if you have like more than 5 interviews that you're juggling and you want to cut to the chase, if it's not a good use of your time, you may want to use compensation as a knockout factor for yourself. 3, if they give you a take-home project and there's a lot of work for you to do, at that point, you may want to have the conversation about compensation to make sure you're in the right ballpark, because why do that needless exercise and work if it's going to yield an offer that you are not going to take? So those are the only times when you should talk about it. And if you don't remember that, you can take a screenshot of this, but we also offer negotiation services at Kadima. If you do get an offer, either verbal or written, just shoot a note to getmorekadimacareers.com. I give you a free second opinion, and we're very good at getting people more money, up to $143,000 more. So last piece of advice I'm going to share with people before I talk a little bit about the offer that we have today, and also give away 3 courses. Remember that you are employed at will, and you can be, what this means is that you can be fired at any time for any reason. But on the flip side, this also empowers you to be a free agent. You can quit at any time for any reason. And what you see here is actual Google offer letter. They put those words in there twice in Google's offer letter, including this one time in all caps. And this is not unique to Google. Almost every company in most countries, there are some countries with different rules and regulations, but even there, pretty much you are hired and you are working at the behest of the company. And when the company wants to get rid of you, they can do that. So on the flip side, own your career and realize that you can leave at any time for any reason, and use that power of free agency. And I got a guest here, Coco. Bring Coco in. I've gotten complaints in the past when my dogs come in and I don't show them. So just a little cameo by Coco there. So now on to how Kadima can help you. So I told you a little bit about the strategies. I told you a little bit about the insight. All this stuff works. So you can either listen to that, remember it. You can also download our growth framework on our website. But based on all my experience of hiring people, of interviewing people, of working with dozens and probably hundreds of clients and friends at this point, I've realized that there is a simple framework that helps people get jobs quickly, confidently, and with lots more money. It's called the growth framework. I basically took you through it before. First, establish goals. We talked about that. Secondly, realistically understand and assess your strengths and leverage those strengths. Third, build outreach. Outreach is key. It will get you those interviews, and it will give you more insight about the company and prepare you for those opportunities. Fourth, work the system. Work the system, apply at the right places at the right time, and keep at it. Fifth, training and tenacity. Train for those interviews. Take a lot of interviews. Learn from those interviews and develop tenacity, because you will get ghosted, you will get rejected, but you will get a role. You will get a better role if you keep persevering. And sixth, high impact negotiation. Do not talk about the comp until you get the offer. Once you get the offer, you have hand, you have leverage, and then the negotiation begins. And whatever they offered you is the very bottom of what you're going to wind up at. So that's when you begin negotiating. Oh, and then you get this lovely rocket boost at the end to your career. So this stuff has not only worked for me throughout my career, it's worked for a number of clients. So I have Marissa on here. Her job was getting eliminated because she worked for a recruiting company. Recruiting companies are not doing so well nowadays. I worked with her. 2.5 months later, she got a great job at Netflix, earning north of $200,000. Bharth, I worked with him. He went from unemployed. He got his stepping stone job at Amazon. He was not so happy there. And a month later, because again, I taught him to be a free agent and own his career, he had something in the works with ADP. He jumped from Amazon to ADP. About a month or two after Amazon, the interview was already underway. He got $100,000 more there, became a senior director of product management. Marty worked with him for less than 4 months. He went from Teach for America to Block, making $68,000 more. And Jackie, she was one of my first clients that I worked with. Her situation took a little bit longer, 7 months. She earned $160,000 more now working at Dell in a marketing capacity. So this stuff works. And if you need some more proof, here are real examples. I took people's names away, but here are the months that they work with Kadima, the companies that they're at now, and the increase in compensation that they are earning now. On average, it takes 3.68 months to get a job. So some people that want to come to me and say, I want a job next week, I tell them it's not going to work. I have gotten someone a job in 3 weeks. I have gotten someone a job in 5 weeks, but those are outliers. And they often had things in the hopper before working with Kadima. The average annual compensation increase is 115,000. Actually, it's 114. I got to update this slide, but 115,000 is close enough. And when we help people negotiate their offer and you follow the strategies that we teach in our course, people earn $36,000 more from the negotiation part alone. And the range is between $5,500 and $143,000 more. So what I've done over the course of the last couple of years working on Kadima is, instead of saying the same thing over and over again and working with people individually, I work to develop a digital course. It's called KJAM, the Job Acquisition Method. And what the Job Acquisition Method comes with, it comes with lifetime access to our course, including any updates that we make to it. Self-paced, on demand. There are resume templates in there. There are LinkedIn best practices. We teach you how to do behavioral-based interviewing. Actually, not all interviewing. Most interviewing is done with behavioral-based interviewing, and it's something that's learnable, trainable. I had to pay $138,000 for my MBA at Columbia Business School, and they taught me how to do it. You don't need to pay $138,000. You can either Google it, but we also teach you in this course specifically how to prepare for behavioral-based interviewing. We have access to secretly recorded interviews from top companies like Stripe and DocuSign and other companies like that. You will learn how to grow your network authentically, efficiently, effectively. That will serve you well, not just for your job search now, but for your career in the long term. We give you access to career negotiation services with a $500 discount off our normal service price or off our normal prices. You join the Acceleration Nation community, a community of other ambitious professionals that are looking to grow and accelerate their career. And like all our solutions, 30-day money-back guarantee. Only one person has ever used that request on the money-back guarantee, but I stand behind all our products. And if it's not working for you, let me know. But I'm so positive that it's going to work for you that I'm very comfortable offering that 30-day money-back guarantee. So as a benefit for folks here, not only we're going to give away 3 free courses, which Natalie is now hopefully figuring out who we're giving these courses away to, but because of appreciating you for your time for coming to this session, we are giving everybody $200 off the normal price of the Job Acquisition Method. So KJAM is typically $597. We have slashed the price. It is $397 if you act quickly, if you take action on your career. So scan this QR code or click on that long URL link, kadimacareers.com/5strategies-post, and you can get $200 off if you act before Friday night at midnight, New York time. I think it's New York time. We might be doing it in your local time zone, but if you act quickly, you will save $200 and you will get started with the Job Acquisition Method. And also, once you complete the course, you can also reach out to me, and I am more than happy to refer you into people in my network. But you need to prove that you've taken the course. I can actually track if you've taken the course. I want to make sure that you are prepared, and I am comfortable making introductions on your behalf. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining today. I love these master classes. Hopefully you learned something. Let me actually, just as a reminder, the job acquisition method, this stuff works. I am so confident with it. We're giving the 30-day money back guarantee, and this is the lowest price we've ever had. It's only $397. It's less than writing a resume. Like, we're less than paying someone to write your resume. I've seen people charge hundreds, if not, I've actually seen someone charge $5,000 to write a resume. We teach you how to write the resume. We teach you how to do your LinkedIn. We teach you all that interview prep, negotiation skills, all for $397 if you act quickly. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And whether you decide to buy job acquisition method or not, there are tons of ways to follow us and Kadima on LinkedIn. Our podcast is awesome, by the way. It's called the Sick Career Podcast, SYCK. And follow us on YouTube too. And subscribe to our channel, please. Thank you, everybody. Happy hump day. And don't forget, own your career. No one else is going to do it for you.